me trying to figure out what the fuck we were saying. I was like, what the fuck?
Come
I
on, I
was like,
wanted a funny way to confuse you because I
no,
know
I
you
understand that, but
because I know you don't speak any other languages but English.
I know numbers in Spanish, but the way you said it, like, threw it off.
Well, hi ladies and gentlemen. I'm back with another video. It's been a minute since I since I posted anything, but hi, I'm back. And I'm here with a friend of mine, both an actual human being that I'm friends with in real life, and somebody that I actually do videos with occasionally, sometimes, rarely. Hi, words.
Hello. You can go to my channel and watch me do stuff like him. We do the same shit, basically.
Wow, that's
Except
a
I stream.
that is true. He streams a lot more often than I do, but I will probably be changing that. But whatever. It's Halloween. It's the spooky time of the year for like 31 days out of the entire year where it's perfectly justifiable to post tier lists and reviews about horror movies that probably came out like 30 years ago. So, in the spirit of Halloween, Words and myself decided to get together on a free day and make a tier list of horror movies that we're both familiar with and rate them. Now, again, this is a very generic box standard S, A, B, C, D, and then trash. Now, you will get to see two idiots argue about what is S, what is A, what is B, what is C, what is D, and what is trash. So, as you can see down below, there are 20 different movie franchises or horror movie franchises, and we're going to rate them. So, why don't we get right into this? So, the first one on our list is Alien. Now, I'm gonna let Words go first and see what he says about it. Where he thinks he belongs.
Alien is great, but if you count Prometheus as part of it and some of the newer Alien movies, I'd have to like it would if Ridley Scott was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do anymore, I would put it in A, but he decided to do shit that he shouldn't have done, if that makes any sense. So I think that I'm leaning towards B, to be honest with you.
He says B. Now, at the end of the day, this is my tier list on my channel. Um, Personally, I have seen a number of the Alien movies. Prometheus, I have a higher opinion of it than Words here. I kind of like what Prometheus was trying to do, but again, since it did exactly stick the landing, especially when Alien Covenant came out. We were like, ooh, ugh, this was a rough one, all right. Um, Personally, I think I'm gonna say something. Go past the first move outside of the original Alien. Once we kind of get past that, it kind of falls off a cliff for me personally. You know, it has one really, really great first movie, and then it just kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me at that point. So for me, I say C. That's me, right? But it's kind of the high C, low B tier. If we're gonna be absolutely fair here.
I don't disagree with that. I'm giving it a low B. I don't hate Prometheus, by the way. It's actually
It's an interesting movie if it was its own thing entirely.
I enjoy it, but I don't like the fact that it's part of
The
the
A,
Alien universe.
yeah, because it complicates things a lot because of all the shit it tried introducing. I went, what even is this anymore? But anyway, Alien, low B, high C tier. Now, this is the first fuck up. I blame Words. This is
Yeah,
Words' fault.
we could just skip this one, but
Well,
yeah.
so the next one on the list is Ring. Now, we are strictly talking about the American version. I have
Yes.
seen the Japanese version. I've seen that one. Really like it. Um, but we are going to be talking strictly about the American version. The American version isn't that scary of a movie. It has its moments where it might like, oh, you might kind of jump a little bit, but it's not like there's no. This was like early, in the early 2000s. This was like before all the jump scare galore that is common now in a lot of horror movies. I like the American version. I think more than I think it had any right to be, because again, this is a an American adaptation of a Japanese property, and I think it did okay. So I'm gonna go, like I said, for me, I give it a B. That's where I stand on the matter. Words.
I slightly disagree with that. I like the first one, but if we're factoring in the two sequels, they're horrible,
Yeah.
and they were just made for money. Um, and then obviously, like it was so bad that Scary Movie literally parodied it, as you can tell from our little picture, if you can see that. So I'm gonna go with a C here for Ring, the Ring series, the American Ring series, just
Mm.
because Ring 2 and Rings were not that great.
Now here's the important question: is it better or worse than the Alien franchise?
Oh, it's definitely worse. I like Alien and Aliens. Alien and Aliens. I'm not a big fan of like Alien 3. It's all right, but and then the other two are just whatever. And if you want to put Alien versus Predator in that group, that's also
Oh, that's a whole different
garbage. Yeah,
conversation,
exactly.
buddy. That movie's a whole different bag of worms, buddy. All right, I can go with that. I can see the validity in that. All right, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What do you think, words? Or what do you think of it, I should say?
Okay, so as you can see, with our fuck up and the right one, I picked something from Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, where Leatherface dresses up in drag. If that doesn't tell you how bad the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, not the first film, but entire franchises, um, then you probably need your head checked. Okay, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first one, it's amazing. Everything else made after that is kind of
Trash.
bad. I mean, it's terrible. I will say though that the 1 minute, I'm just looking this. I'd probably say the 2003 film isn't terrible. It's all right. Um, then Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning was horrible, and then Texas Chainsaw 3D. I remember when that came out, and a lot of people loved it. It's boring. It's a messy film, and then I just haven't had time to watch Leatherface or the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre because there's three movies with the same exact fucking name for some reason. But yeah, definitely. I hate to do this because it's one of the greatest slasher films. If it wasn't for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we probably wouldn't have a slasher film genre. But it's gonna go into the F tier. It's complete fucking trash. There's there's one movie that's legitimately great, and you can debate 2003 maybe, the 2003 version maybe, as an okay adaptation of it. But everything else is absolute fucking garbage. I haven't heard anything good about that Leatherface movie or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out in 2022. So I'm going F tier for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love the first one, but It's garbage. Let's be honest.
So I actually saw bits and pieces of that 2022 or yeah 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Let me just say this much: he was stacking them bodies up in that movie, and he did not discriminate. He said, "I don't care if you suck dick or munch on rug, you is gonna get the hammer, bitch." No, like I said, for me, I remember distinctly the first one. The others were kind of blurs and frankly forgettable at best. For me, I remember the 2003 one. I was like, I fucking hated that movie more than anything else. I was like, what is this shit? First one, I think it's good. I don't think it's great personally, but I think it's a good slasher movie. Now, again, for context, I did have seen other slasher movies before I ever saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so maybe that diluted, you know, the my first viewing of that movie. So, look, it was great seeing him murder people because again, that's what you go see a slasher movie for. You get to see people getting absolutely, you know, getting a getting shanked. I say D, right? I'm gonna put it in D. It's probably the low D tier, high trash, if that's even a compliment. Is that really much of a compliment?
It's failing either way. So
So yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a franchise. It's a D tier, ladies and gentlemen. The Exorcist. Oh boy, this one is this one is an interesting franchise because I've seen a couple of the because how many are there again at this point? It's like we just had recently The Exorcist, The Believer or whatever just come out.
so legitimately, there's the first three, which were made from the 70s to 90 and or 80 or something like that. Yeah, 90, my bad. And then there's the two then there's technically the prequel that came out in the early 2000s, but they released it twice because one version was the studio's version, the other version is the director's version. And then there's The Exorcist Believer. So there's five technically there's six movies, but it's really five. But yeah, there's a lot of fake ones also, so we should point that out.
Yeah.
Because The Exorcist is not a word that you can really copyright.
So, you went first, right? With the
Yes, I went first for Chainsaw.
yeah, okay. So, look at that. I can't even remember who the fuck went first last time. My God, beauty. Um, I have seen the original. I like I said, I've seen bits and pieces of the other ones. I've never sat through the entirety of the rest. Or I've only seen a couple. I'll be honest. Haven't seen the new one, and I don't know if I want to see the new one because I heard it was really, really, really bad. At least from some people that I know. Can't really tell you much of the other ones. Like I said, the first one I thought was a really, really good horror movie. Now, I think what added to it was the time because it was the whole like, you know, this was when America was a lot more religious back then. So it was a lot more of how should I say had more of an impact on the people compared to now. People are just like, eh. But for me, in terms of if I had to give it a ranking, I say a B. That's where I stick it. What do you think,
It's,
Words? I say B.
so I have seen the first three Exorcist movies. I haven't watched the two prequels that are technically the same movie, but I've heard really bad things about that one. And obviously Exorcist Believer I've heard is terrible. I heard it's the same fucking thing as Halloween Kills, and we're going to get into that eventually. But cuz it's by the same guy, David Gordon Green, who did the entire recent Exorcist um he did the entire recent Halloween trilogy, I should say. But as for the first three Exorcist films, The Exorcist 1, or the original, and The Exorcist 3 are both really great films outside of just horror. All right. The Exorcist, the first one, is an amazing horror film. It's probably the greatest of all time, in my opinion. The Exorcist 3, though, just like the original Exorcist, is a very good study on like Catholic culture or the fact that people uh, sometimes don't have a choice but to turn to you know, the thing like religion if they're not religious. Because if you watch The Exorcist, that wasn't the first, you know, course of action. I'm gonna go The Exorcist in the A tier. No,
Wow.
actually, it's yeah, I'll go A tier. I think the first film alone just carries it to that point, but Exorcist 3 is really good. The Exorcist 2 is okay. It's not like the greatest thing ever. Linda Blair is not really that great of an actress, but I don't hate those first three films. I know a lot of people don't like the second one at least. But the prequels I've heard nothing but bad things. There was a reason they literally re-released it in the director's cut version because it was so bad, the version that they put out. And then Exorcist Believer I've heard is just really bad from a lot of people. So I'm gonna go A tier for Exorcist.
Slight disagreement, but hey, I had like I said, the compromise would obviously be low A, high B.
I
Now,
Same with me. That's what I would say. It's probably low A, high B, but I think the greatness of that first film is enough to bump it to that low A.
now we move on to everybody's favorite, and I mean favorite killer doll. Good old motherfucking Chucky. What do you think, words?
So we'll go with the original Child's Play films. I don't think we want to throw in the remake, do we?
If we did,
Or
this shit would be going down real fast.
I mean, to be fair, I'll say this about Child's Play: the first two films are really good. The third is pretty bad. I don't even remember the third film like that great, to be honest with you. Oh, I remember it now. Child's Play is just a weird thing because they made those first three and they're legitimate like normal slasher films, right? Just with a killer doll. And then you get to the Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky,
Uh huh.
which are like black black horror. If you don't know what black horror is, it's like or black dramas where it's like not really a horror film, but more of like a comedic horror thing, if that makes any sense, you know. Like
It's like
it's
unintended.
weird.
It's like
Yeah.
unintended comedy in a sense.
Well, not really. It's supposed to be funny, but it's I don't know. Child's Play is weird. Because I actually like Bride and Seed of Chucky, believe it or not. They're not great or anything, but they're not terrible. Like I said, I don't really like Child's Play 3, but I think the first two are okay. Then there's Curse of Chucky that came out in 2013, and then The Cult of Chucky. Those two films are fucking garbage. They're worse than anything else in in that series. And then of course the remake is bad, but we're not going to talk about that. There's also that show right now, the Chucky show, and I don't think we're throwing that in, even though I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it ties into the original films and not the remake. But we're not going to talk about that either. I'm going to put Child's Play in like the C tier. I don't think they're anything amazing. The first movie is really good, but everything else after that is like the quality just lowers. They're fun, like the Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky are fun movies to watch, but they are not that good if we're being honest. So I'm gonna put Child's Play in the C tier.
So, um, I remember Chucky's Bride. I remember that movie distinctly as a because I was younger. I was like young when I saw it for the first time, and I went, "Holy crap! What is this fucking movie?" You know? Because again, the only like I said, words mention it. This is nothing. It's outside of the whole doll being alive and being the killer. Like there's nothing about it that's like wholly different from any kind of slasher film out there. Like its only separating factor was having this iconic doll, right? That is synonymous with this franchise and generally speaking with the horror genre as a whole, right? Like I think you show like Chucky's face to most people, they know who he is, like right off the bat. Like they know, oh, he's the doll that kills people or whatever.
You won't even have to show his face. You can show like his clothes, and people will automatically know who he is.
Yeah, like I think the first movie I've seen, the first and Chucky's Bride, I think, and I've seen a little bit of the 20th the the remake. It was I was like, I'm not watching this shit anymore. It gets really bad at certain parts. But for me, like Ward said, this is a case for a lot of franchises in general, not just for the horror, but in general, is that more often than not, obviously there are going to be exceptions, the quality tends to drop off after the first movie. Sometimes it's not that bad of a drop off, and other times it's like a fucking cliff, bro. It's like you're going down to the Mariana Trench bottom bad. And Child's Play, I want to say, I'm going to agree with Words. It is C tier, but we're exactly in the C tier.
Oh, it's definitely like low C low C, like
Okay.
low C, high. I know. I would say it's like a C or low C. Not a low D, not a high D, but you know, I don't think like I think that first film carries it enough again to be like
Here's the question:
average.
is it better than, for example, the Rings franchise or the Rings?
I think it's just slightly better.
Hmm.
And I'll say that only because it is technically an original idea.
So you okay?
And the Ring series is based off of the Japanese thing, and there's like 8 of those movies in Japan or some shit like that. So,
Yeah,
to be honest,
there's quite a few. I think they even had a they had their own Jason versus Freddy movie where they basically had this chick versus the Grudge.
Grudge.
Yeah,
I was gonna throw the Grudge on this list, but I was like, no, let's not do that.
yeah.
Uh,
So
but
you
yeah,
say it's above the Ring simply because again it's its own thing. It's not an adaptation. It is its own thing.
pretty much yes.
All right, I can buy that. All right, so let's hope people don't throw fits about that because there might be some people who are like, hey, the Ring is better than Child's Play. I'm like, look, this is just our personal opinion, ladies and gentlemen. And believe me, as we get there's some movies on this movie franchises on this list that I know me and Words are going to vehemently disagree. Paranormal Activity.
Oh God.
Oh Lord, where do we even start? I have seen most of the movies. Believe it or not, I've seen most of them.
I've only
Um,
seen the first two, to be fair.
I'm gonna be completely 100% outside of the first movie, which had an interesting little premise. It wasn't anything like revolutionary or anything like that. It was a neat little concept of the entire movie was shot through the perspective of cameras. Like you were literally looking through security cameras the entirety of the time. And you got to see the lives of the people play out and watch the paranormal stuff. You basically got to be the fly on the wall when shit hit the fan. Right? Because we all seen the ghost videos on YouTube and on Twitter and everywhere else where like weird shit happens but people kind of miss it or whatever. This is basically that but the movie. Well, Until we get into the bizarro land that like the later ones get into, where it literally turned into a case of like, here's like two Mexicans armed with guns shooting up like people take possessed by ghosts or whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? What is this? Look, I'm gonna be real honest. It is fucking trash. It's a trash franchise as a whole, right? I'm not gonna mince words about it. It is bad. It's a neat little premise for the first movie, but it milked the shit out of it.
They
what
even have a video game, so think about that.
What do you think, Words? Do you think it deserves anything higher than trash?
The first film is alright, and the second one was just that was the beginning of the end. I gotta say, a lot of people like Bloomhouse, because they make a lot of the really good, um, like horror movies. We're gonna talk about another one with Insidious, um, and Sinister actually, uh, in the Halloween series. But let's be honest, Bloomhouse has been kind of shit. Let's stop acting like that's not the case. I'm tired of people saying that they make good movies. Like they'll make one good film in their like series and then everything falls off a cliff. I gotta say the first Paranormal Activity is alright. The rest of them, I've only seen the second one. The second one's alright, but the fact that they've milked it to the point that there's 7 movies, 7 Paranormal Activity movies, which is more than the Scream films. Well, not almost. Well, Scream is about to hit 7. Um, and there's more. They have more films than Jaws. I think that's a problem. Let's be honest here. I think it deserves. I'm gonna throw that shit in the F tier. All right. What I will say is that I'm happy enough to admit that they spawned 2 really good parody films, though, and we watched one of those in theaters when it came out.
Well, we really should
Um,
not have been.
yes, we were like, I don't even know how old I was. I know you were older than us, but we were like still like 14 or some shit like that when it came out. But A Haunted House 1 and 2, which kind of were the spiritual successors to the um,
Scary movies.
scary movie films, were really good. And that's it. That's all I'll say. That's the best thing that came out of that literally came out of Paranormal Activity, in my opinion.
So, it seems we are in agreement. Trash. Compete. It should be taken out behind the shed and put out of its misery. Because I don't know if they're still making more of those. I think they may have stopped because they were just like getting so bad. I think Bloomhouse went, yeah, let's cut this.
Well, I mean, the last one came out 2 years ago, so
You know what? Maybe it's still going strong.
and I
Now,
hope it doesn't.
you know they will. You know they'll make another one. Now, we're gonna move on to Jeepers Creepers. Now, I'm gonna say something before anybody who watches this the video and gets to this point says what you know what we're all gonna say. We're all very aware of what the director has done. Let's be, you know. However, I'm gonna take the approach of let's separate the art from the artist. Despite how heinous what this motherfucker did, let's just be aware of that as we're grading this. But again, we're just looking at the movie. Um, what do you think, Words? What is your thoughts on the Jeepers Creepers franchise?
I'll be completely honest with you. I don't. I've never watched the second or third one, to be honest. Um, the first one isn't a terrible film though. It's it's a commercial success. Um, if you can get Francis Ford Coppola involved to the point that he kind of helped produce the film, then you have something that's all right. Um, but you know, um, there's like the other two films I haven't really watched, to be honest with you. I haven't heard great things. There's actually three films that came out after, right?
Yeah, there's a third. There's a
There's
recently a.
another one that just came out, right?
Mm-hmm. Not that long ago.
And I saw some pictures from that, and it looked like shit. I will say that. Um, and if I'm not mistaken, it had nothing to do with the guy, the original dude, Victor Salva.
Yeah, he was gone. He was
He
pretty
was
much.
gone. I'm pretty sure he's in jail or some shit.
No,
Probably.
I think he got out actually not that long ago. That's
Well, that's not good.
because he
Uh,
because he was involved with the third movie.
that is true. He did help with the third film. It's the first one is good. I'll say that. The second and third one, the second one's okay, barely. I heard really bad things about the third film, though, like really bad things. And so, and the most recent one just looks like shit to me. So I'm automatically going. This one's gonna go in the D tier. The first film, and it's a low D. He might hate me for saying that, but it's gonna be in the low D's for me.
So my score is completely different than his, but I'm gonna get into it first. I'm gonna get into my reason why. I actually look. I have seen the first, the second, and the third. I love the first two. I'm gonna be 100% honest with everyone here, including words. I love the first two movies. The first one, like I said, they're a tale of two halves. Um, you can like if you want a very easy, kind of like way to look at it. Think of like the Sicario movies and how different the first and the second one were from each other, but they still kind of have the same kind of core things to it. Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2 are kind of the same way. Like the first one was kind of more of like the horror movie. It was more like, uh, you know, dark and grungy, and like there was genuine like holy like it kind of was trying to make you like unnerve you kind of movie. The second one, while still scary and had its moments of like, it was more of the, I guess you could say, maybe it had some hints of like the Predator, where here's the monster, here's the thing hunting the people down. And it was, like I said, there was hardly, I'll be honest, I don't think there was like a single legitimate jump scare in the second movie. Now, as Word said, once we get to movie 3, oh my god, I saw it when it came out on television because it went straight to television. It had no DVD, had no none of that shit. It went straight to television. I was watching that shit. I think it was like on Sci-Fi or whatever channel was playing it at the time, and I was like, they actually, oh my god, this movie's on. This movie came out I watched it the year it came out on television. I went, Jesus Christ, this movie's terrible. Now, I haven't seen the new one. I will be prefacing this. I haven't seen the new one yet, but if it's anything like the last one, I'm going to skip out on it because it got really bad. So, my score, I give it a B. I give it a B.
I don't disrespect the. I don't hate that, but you know,
Like I said,
we're tails. We're two different sides of the coin in this case as well.
yeah. But again, that is just my thoughts on Jeepers Creepers. I love the first two movies, on wholeheartedly love them. They have their criticisms. I'm not gonna say if you ever criticism of them like Words here does. I'm not gonna say it's wrong because I mostly agree with it, but I still love them regardless. Now, let's move on from the incarnation of. Let's move on to the movie that kind of has literally created. Could would it be wrong to say Saw created a genre of like you know uh, I don't even know how to describe it.
It helped push the torture porn horror genre into the spotlight.
Yeah,
We call it torture porn.
yeah, that's what I was thinking of. So, what do you think of it? What do you think of the Saw franchise? Because a new movie just came out literally this year, I think.
You sure you wanna? You want me to go first?
I'll go. You go first.
Okay, that's fine. I don't hate Saw, the whole Saw series. I will say, there's about 7 films too many. Or I don't even know how many there are, because
I think up to 10.
are there 11 really?
There's like 10 or 11. It hit double digits.
So oh no, okay, so it is okay. Because I was gonna say Spiral. Spiral is technically part of the Saw series. Yeah. I like the Saw films, like I said. Um, but there's a little too many. Let's just say that. I know Saw X/Saw 10 just came out like a month ago, maybe. I've seen some good things about it, but I've also, heard that it's Saw again. Um, I mean, it's hard to say anything other than that, right? I think the first 3 films are really good, and I think that they should have ended there. But that's just my personal opinion on that. But yeah, I mean, uh, it's hard to rank Saw. I'll be honest with you.
I think it entirely
Just
depends on your view of like the horror content, like the what, because again, this is mostly a torture porn kind of movie franchise. Like it entirely depends on whether you're cool with watching that or whether you just despise the fucking concept of it outright. I think that really depends on like the person. I've seen some people love this franchise. I've seen some people fucking despise this franchise. Like it's very polarizing. You very rarely find people in the middle when it comes to this movie's franchise.
I'm gonna go, man. This is a hard one. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go B tier for Saw. Like I said, I think the first 3 films are really good. Spiral wasn't bad, from what I remember. I watched it one time and I don't really remember it. And then just every other Saw film that's ever come out since the like third one is like whatever. I'm hearing good things about the most recent one, but you know, who knows? I haven't watched it to say anything else. I think it's a good B tier trilogy, but I know that a lot of people don't like torture porn. I'm not the biggest fan of it, which is why after the third film, I don't give a shit anymore. But that's pretty much it.
So for me, my thoughts aren't all that different from words. Like I said, it will very like I said, your opinion of like the torture porn and the really horrific stuff that like people have to do in this movie, like depending on your view on how much you can tolerate that stuff really does dictate how you view this movie. Yes, is there a story in the background? Is there some interesting things that the movie does in the background? Sure. There's some interesting characters here and there, which they kind of also ruin at at several points in the franchise. For me, I'm gonna say it is C tier. I think it is worse than Alien. Like I'm not the like I said. And I'll be brutally honest, I think it's worse than basically Child's Play. That's where I stand on it. Because again, once you've seen, while there is a story, like I mentioned earlier, is it really enough to carry you through all like the horrific stuff that happens throughout this movie? No. I'm gonna be real with you. You kind of like get tired of it. I've seen, I don't want to say most of them. I've seen the first two. I know the first two I've seen. I remember watching. Oh God, what was the one with the detective? Don't remember if that was like the see. I don't remember because I remember the detective who later on became like a one of his disciples or whatever that went on to like take part in the whole Jigsaw thing. But yeah, for me, I say it's worse than Alien and Child's Play, but it's better than The Ring. So now we move on to Amityville and that whole
In the hood.
in the hood. Let's my mistake. Amityville in the Hood. So, this I don't even know how many movies there are. It's a lot, isn't it?
S- So in the actual in like the actual series, it's like I'm looking at the book right now, so this is not what I wanted to look at. 1 minute, let me pull up the films. So like if I'm not mistaken, I think after like the fourth one is when like from 79 to 89 is like where the real ones are for the most part. But there's like a million Amityville films.
And
They did a
spin-offs.
remake in 2005. There's just so much shit. There's just really bad shit to the point. Wow, Amityville Exorcism has absolutely nothing to do with the actual Amityville horror, uh, whatsoever. None of this shit up except for the original one. Part two is technically an actual sequel, if I'm not mistaken. And 3D, Amityville 3D, because every single horror franchise at this period had to have a 3D as their third film. If I'm not mistaken, it's also technically a sequel. And then there's Amityville 4, The Evil Escaped, which was a television film, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that is the last actual legit one. I might be wrong. I'm looking at the to see who was in charge of some of these. Yeah, so from 79 to 89, over that 10-year period, they made 4 films that are legitimately part of the actual Amityville horror franchise. Then there's a bunch of garbage that's been coming out over the last like 30 years. I hate the original film. I hate the second film. I hate the third film. I hate the fourth film. And I hate every single thing that's ever been made that has to do with the Amityville horror because it's all fucking garbage. Now, yes, it's based off of a book, supposedly that is real. How much I believe that, completely different. Has nothing to do with this ranking. But the Amityville series is an F. Every single sequel, every fake sequel is an F. I hate every single one of those fucking movies. The first one is okay. Not great, not good. Okay. Slightly okay. Possibly slightly bad. So it goes in the F tier. And I've seen, and you can watch a lot of these new Amityville films because you can't copyright Amityville because it's the name of a fucking town. So people just throw Amityville on their title and people will watch it because they're stupid. Um, if you want to watch any of the Amityville films, probably Amityville in the Hood is on there. You can go to Tubi and you'll find a lot of the really crap, the actual crap. Um, I've seen some stuff that's funny though, that makes fun of the whole Amityville thing, and those are not bad because they're funny movies. They're just not, they're bad funny movies, but it's not on the level of bad that the rest of the series is on. Amityville is a horrible series.
Damn.
It's F tier.
Damn. This man came out with a hate boner for this fucking franchise. He came out and let it rip. um okay, so how am I gonna follow up on what Word said? Um I have seen the original. Does that Bella Thorne one count as an Amityville movie? Because
There's a Bella Thorne Amityville film.
I
I didn't
th-
even know that.
I remember distinctly one day on YouTube, an ad for it came up. It was like one of the ads that popped up, and it was like Bella Thorne in it because that woman has nothing going for her,
Oh, I
but
see.
only but only fans.
Is this part of the?
I have no idea. I'm just gonna make the assumption that it is, but
No, so it treats all the previous films as fictional films in the universe of the movie. So no, that doesn't count technically. I guess. We're just throwing it all in there. All the fake ones go with it because
it's
they just they started something that they couldn't stop, and we're gonna pin that on them forever.
so. I've seen the first one, and I have never seen anything else of this franchise. I'm gonna take words at his word, and just go with it's trash because again, you know, is it good? I mean, I don't. I think the first one is forgettable at best. I'll be honest. That's about it. You know, I all I remember distinctly from that movie is the scene I think in which the haunting like gets to the point where the family like is leaving and it's like a torrential rain outside and they're having to scramble to the car to get the fuck out of Dodge. Um so that's the most I can remember of this franchise. And that car trying to leave the town symbolizes my thoughts on it, which is I want to get the fuck out of here and right into The Conjuring. So, The Conjuring. The first, not even. No, I'm wrong. It's the multiverse of horror movies because my God, this shit has spawned so many tentacles that go in so many different directions. I have no idea what the fuck is not the Conjuring part of the Conjuring verse anymore. Um, because you have the Nun, you had the three Conjuring films, you had there was like one or two other films as well mixed in there.
Annabelle.
Annabelle. Oh yeah, the actual origins of the doll, and then the and then the what the fuck is it? The one with the pregnant lady, which leads to her, the whatever. Like, but you guys get the point, right? We're throwing all that in there as a whole because this fucking thing is too big to like do separately. So the Conjuring
There's
movies.
actually 3 Annabelle films, by the way.
There's three. Wait,
Yes.
which one am I forgetting then? There's the one with the doll maker where
There's the first one that came out in 2014. Then
that's the
there's
one with the pregnant lady.
Annabelle Creation,
That's the one in which the little girls were like,
and then there's Annabelle Comes Home.
oh, okay, that's what it is. That's what the one I remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I mixed that one up with the Conjuring 3 that we went to see in theaters. That had like one legitimately like scare in the entire movie. And
Oh, I mean, we literally called the fucking ending before it happened, and we
but
saw it in theaters.
so the best way to sum up the Conjuring movies is a more expensive, better better CGI and better special effects version of like Goosebumps. That is my honest opinion of the Conjuring movies. Is it is Goosebumps but with a higher budget because legitimately speaking, I don't think hardly anyone dies in these movies. There's hardly any real threat of anybody like being hurt in these movies to an extent. And I understand, for example, The Conjuring, they're all based on real life stories. They can't have anybody die necessarily because it would go against the stories that they're quote unquote based on. Even though like I've seen what the real like the actual Conjuring house looks like. Looks nothing like the house that was depicted in the movie. It's completely different. Um and obviously you have the whole controversy with like, whether or not Ed and Lorraine are like lying and whatnot about their shit. Because I believe they were involved with like the Amityville stuff as well.
If
So
it wasn't for the Amityville horror, we wouldn't be talking about these fucking movies.
that is also true. But for me, I'm gonna say this much. I think of all of them, I think my favorite still remains the first movie. of the whole Conjuring, of the Conjuring trilogy, and in general. I think after that, it may be Annabelle the Creation, because Annabelle Comes Home is fucking awful. It's a awful movie from start to finish, personally. And then Conjuring 2 was just Conjuring, but in England. And then Conjuring 3 was just the only scary moment I even remember from that movie was like, remember when like the guy was like running down the hall and like he
Yeah.
falls, he looks back and there's like the window and like it starts to like darken up and there's like the red light coming through and then you see the figure come out, which is like I think it was it was either a woman or a man, I don't remember. And then obviously then that person looks directly at him, gets on all fours and just fucking runs at him like a goddamn, you know, like a bat out of hell, right? But again, that's the thing. The Conjuring franchise as a whole is just like okay, right? I think if we also include the Nun, which oh my god, the Nun, I haven't seen the second one, and somebody I know, that I know watched it, and they said it's what they expected, which is just the Nun, but the first movie, but just the same. That's the thing. This thing runs out of steam real fast. And so I say it is C. It is a C tier movie. I think it's probably the best out of all the. Eh, eh, mother. Hijo de puta. Yo. Thank you. That was a struggle. Words. What do you think?
I like the first two Conjuring. Well, no. I'll say this. I like the first Conjuring, and I like Annabelle, the first Annabelle, and that's pretty much it. The Conjuring 2 is literally just a Conjuring again. We saw the Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is the third one, the third in the trilogy of the mainline Conjuring films. That was the only one we've seen in theaters, actually.
Yeah, the rest.
Well, that I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a hard one because I just shitted on the Amityville horror, right? And if it wasn't for the Amityville horror, we probably wouldn't have these fucking movies because there's like a 99% chance that Ed and Lorraine Warren were full of shit, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure they kind of were. I'm going to be completely honest. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about here. I will say this. I think that the Conjuring trilogy isn't terrible, okay? But they're not like great. The first film is great, but then the other two are bad. Annabelle, the first Annabelle is fine. The other two Annabelle films I could care less about, to be honest with you. And then we haven't watched The Nuns at all. I don't think I watched either one of the Nuns, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've seen
And
the first one.
I don't have any interest in watching them. So these are like those movies that you just watch when you want to watch something that's kind of scary but really isn't.
They're
So
good.
I'll say this. I think I'm going to go with you. I think this franchise in general is a C. Um, there's some okay. There's some. The first film was okay. It's good enough for me. I'll watch that multiple times over. I'll watch the first Annabelle film maybe once or twice over. The other films I could care less about. They're all pretty forgettable after that. So I'm throwing it in the C tier.
And we go from, The Conjuring to A Nightmare on Elm Street. Some may say, some may think it's like the GOAT horror franchise, I've heard some people say. What do you say, Words?
I think Nightmare on Elm Street for kind of kickstarting Wes Craven's franchise because Wes Craven is one of my favorite directors ever. Um, I'll say this: the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and I'm gonna talk about Freddy versus Jason because we're also talking about Friday the 13th, so I think
Yeah.
it's fair. Um, and I'm gonna talk about the remake as well, even though that we shouldn't really count that. But the first Nightmare on Elm Street is really fucking great. It's one of it's just a great like it's a great film that takes horror, the slasher horror genre into a place that most people probably wouldn't expect. And then they made a sequel that nobody asked for, to be honest with you, because the ending was perfectly fine until they forced Wes Craven to shoot a fucking um, cliffhanger because for some reason, yeah, that needed they needed to make money. Um, and if it also wasn't for Nightmare on Elm Street, New Line Cinema wouldn't have existed. So let's be honest. Um, so the first film is great. It's a really good morality story of sexual promiscuous crap. I'm reading the Wikipedia, but no, seriously, it's actually a really good morality play on like a bunch of shit. To be honest with you, um, but then there's the second movie, and the second movie is garbage, and most people would agree with me on that one.
Yeah.
And then Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, is actually not bad. It's very weird. Like the Nightmare on Elm Street like series, like the odd films are the ones that are usually okay. Or at least the first three. And then after that, yeah, everything is just fell off a cliff completely. The Nightmare on Elm Street series is just really stupid, if I'm being honest. Um, Final Nightmare is horrible. The Dream Child from Nightmare 5 is fucking garbage as well. The fourth one is okay, but it's also pretty bad. And let's also be honest, Final Nightmare also had a bunch of that crap 3D shit that everybody had to do once. Um, it's just a joke, right? But yeah, and then after that, they made they made this thing. I don't even know if you really would count that in reality. The an, well, not that one. What is it called again? Wes Craven's New Nightmare or whatever the fuck. I always forget what it's called
Something like that.
because it's not. It's weird because it's not really part of the. Because it's not really part of the franchise in a way. But I'll say what I will say is the first film, the third film are really good. Everything else is kind of shit. It's just over the top and goes against what Wes Craven would have wanted for the series in general. He at that time he didn't want it to be a big ass franchise like that. And then he made New Nightmare, which is actually not a terrible film, but it's like the super meta before he made Scream technically. So um I like New Nightmare. I'm going to go and say overall because of the first and third and New Nightmare. I'm actually going to throw Nightmare on Elm Street in the B tier. I think even if you don't like, even if those films are just shit, like I think everyone can agree they're kind of shit and over the top at times, but they're still fun to watch at the end of the day, for the most part. Uh, for the most part, yeah, like I mean, that's pretty much all I can say. And then Freddy versus Jason, which I said I was gonna bring up. I love Freddy versus Jason. Actually, a lot of people don't like it. It's actually my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street and my favorite Friday the 13th film, but we'll get into that a little later. Um, some people don't like it. That's fine. I don't, it is what it is. But yeah, I got Nightmare on Elm Street in the B tier, in my opinion.
So, with all that being said,
That was a lot of words. I'm sorry.
I mean, he covered some of the things I would say. I've seen, although I think did we say we were gonna bring up the remake, or we're just gonna leave it to
Oh,
off to the.
I guess we should have brought that up.
So
I'll just touch on it really fast for my purpose, and I'll let you go.
yeah,
The remake is literally a fucking remake of the original film. And Freddy looks like shit in it. He looks like melted cheese. Um
a gooey mozzarella motherfucker.
that's what he looks like literally in the remake. It's not terrible cuz it's the same fucking thing, but of course nobody asked for it. So there's that. Um it's not like the worst thing in the fucking world, but it was completely unnecessary so that but I'm not going to take points off of from that on the entire franchise because there's already a bunch of movies that are taking it down from what could have been an S tier series to a B already. So, yeah, you
You
can continue.
alrighty. For me, I have seen the first one, and I distinctly, like I said, for me when I was younger and I first saw these movies, and I've seen the first one, I've seen the second one, bits and pieces of the third one, and I've also seen the remake. That's kind of my general experience with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Love the first one. For me, if it was if it was up to me, I pretend like nothing else happens after the first movie. For me, I just kind of pretend nothing else happened after the first movie because I'm like, doesn't need it. It's whatever. We don't, the sequel. The sequel doesn't exist. Not even the third movie. And well, the remake is well, it is what it is. There. For me, I say it's a B as well. I gonna put it above the Jeepers Creepers franchise because look, I'm gonna be real. Are we Jeepers Creepers is there simply because I like the movies, despite them being bad. All right, it's personal preference there. But Nightmare on Elm Street, generally speaking, with like again, the whole, the thing with Freddy being like this, like being powerful in dreams and all this other kind of stuff, and as Word said, there is some deeper stuff it plays on. It's just a good movie. It's just an honest to God good movie to watch, right? And again, Freddy, much like Chucky, Freddy is also up there in terms of like you see him, you know who the fuck he is immediately. You know him, right? It's especially like his sweater, right? You either look at his sweater or the hand, the blades on his hand on his gloves. Either one of those things, you immediately know who the fuck you're talking about. Like most people know who you're talking about. So I say it's B. I think it's not better than The Exorcist, but it's also better than Jeepers Creepers because I don't have the balls big enough to go. It's better than a Nightmare on Elm Street. Look, I like my life. I'd very much, like to keep it that way.
I'll also just add this again. I know I'm saying a lot of shit. I had Saw in the B tier as well. And what I said about Saw, how there's too many Saw movies, it's the same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street. So that's pretty much it.
Now we go from a Nightmare on Elm Street to good old Scream, because my God, this franchise refuses to die. So, words went first last time. I'm going first this time. Scream. I have seen a couple of these movies. Haven't seen the most recent one. I'm kind of burnt out, honestly, on these movies. Scream, if I remember correctly, words, correct me if I'm wrong, is basically kind of it plays on the whole meta of like slasher movies, if I remember right. So how it goes.
So yeah, like I said with New Nightmare, Wes Craven was trying to perfect that like meta that kind of meta like horror film, slasher film, and then he went full force with Scream, with all the Scream films. They all have like a Jesus. They all have like a meta on like things. Like the first film is just a meta in general on like slasher films, and then and what horror films and slasher films can cause people to do. You know what I'm saying? And then the second film is a meta on sequels. The third film is the third film. The fourth movie is about reboots, is a meta on reboots because it came out at a time where every single fucking movie was being rebooted slash remade. The fifth film was also the exact same thing, pretty much. It's like soft reboots. And then the sixth film, I have not watched it, but I'll get into that when it's my turn.
So, I have seen I've seen the first one for sure. However, my memory gets hazy with 2 and 3, right? Because I've remember certain scenes from both of them, but I can't tell you for sure how much of it. Like, I can't remember how. I can't speak today, can I? I can't remember much of them. Okay, there you go. the I'll be honest, I don't have the highest opinion of Scream because again, I will be honest and say I've seen these movies post like I saw these like I think after 4 came out is when I kind of started like I saw these movies for the first time. And again, much like with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it hit the problem that I kind of ran into with these movies, which is I've seen these already. And while sure there is a deeper thing, like as Word said, I don't know. Like I'm not the film, critique guy like Words is. Like there are things I will miss because I'm an idiot. But I like the movies, but I don't know. They kind of got stale real fast for me. And again, it is what it is for me. I'm gonna say it's if it was like I said, the first movie I think is worthy of just an A, maybe even an S personally. But once we got to 2 and 3, it just kind of dropped. I have a better opinion of Scream over The Exorcist, for example. So for me, it's like the highest B on the list. That's where I stand on it.
I disagree
Okay.
heavily.
You think it goes higher?
For me, yeah. Um, is this my time to go?
This is your time to go. Let it
All right.
rip.
The Scream franchise up, and I only count up to the fourth film, is my favorite slasher franchise of all time, actually. So I'm a little impartial here. The first Scream is an S tier film. It's literally the greatest slasher film, in my opinion, ever made. People can disagree all they want. People are gonna probably say Halloween probably deserves it over it. I disagree. I think it's a great meta on just the horror slasher genre in general, while also making an amazing slasher film. But then you get to Scream 2, Scream 3, and Scream 2 is a fucking mess because they rushed it and made them release it a year after the fucking first film came out. Um, blame fucking who the fuck was even in charge at the time? Dimension Films. So blame Harvey Weinstein
Oh God, that's
because
a
he wanted money.
that's a name I haven't heard in a while. Oh shit.
The second film is a great like meta slasher on like the idea of sequels in Hollywood because every sequel usually is bad and it ends up that this sequel was also bad compared to the first film. It wasn't terrible. I can still stand Scream 2. Like I can watch Scream 2 and just be like whatever. There's some cringe shit in it though. I will say that. And a lot of people that are Scream fans are going to disagree with me in general with the way I view this, but Scream 2 is fine. Scream, the original one, is an S tier film. It's literally the greatest slasher horror film, in my opinion, ever created. And then you have Scream 3, which is not a good movie. But I will say that it's better than Scream 2022, which is also known as Scream 5 for the people that are dumb. Or not the people that are dumb, for the people that get easily confused because people think that it's cool to name films the same thing that they were named originally. And then Scream 6 I refuse to watch. And I'll get into that in a second. Scream 3, I really don't even understand Scream 3 still at this point. It's still like the same idea where uh we made a trilogy in and film trilogies are usually not good or they're really good and they have like a bad ending sometimes or they have a really good ending sometimes and whatever the case may be, right? Um but here's the problem with Scream 3. There's way too much comedic shit in it. It upped the comedy that was even in the first film. In the second film, I should say. And they also had to cut out a lot of shit because Columbine happened, sadly. So they cut out a lot of shit that was actually, probably would have made the film better. And then they also retconned the entire fucking story from the first film and why Billy and Stu decided to start killing people and killed Sydney's mother. Because now it really wasn't because, they became psychotic and shit. It's because Sydney's secret brother, who turns out to be a director who is trying to make his way in Hollywood and is also directing Stab 3, the the trilogy sequel to the in-universe films that is Scream basically for the people in the universe. So it's a whole meta with that as well that they're making fucking movies based off of the movies that we're watching and whatever. The third film is bad. I don't like it. Let's just say that. It's not terrible though when you compare it to, of course, Scream 5 and Scream 4. Scream 4 or Scream 5 and Scream 6, I should say. As for Scream 4, I love Scream 4. Scream 4 is my second favorite film and it brings the I think it's a really good like meta on reboots slash remakes. Um and it's the only one that actually gets the sequel meta thing correct. And then you get to the recent films that Wes Craven is no longer a part of because he passed away. Rest in peace to the man, probably the greatest uh, horror director of all time. They took his child, they took him and Kevin Williamson's child, Scream, and they bastardized it and turned it into Scream 2022 and Scream 6, which are Scream 2022 is a soft reboot and is a meta on soft reboots that we've been seeing in Hollywood for a long time. And then there's a lot of like these uh like sequels that are coming out, legend like legacy sequels that are coming out that just have the same exact name as the first film, and that's what the meta was for it. The only good thing about Scream 2022 is that Jenna Ortega is in it, and we all love her. I cream in my pants every time I see Jenna Ortega, so that's the only good reason to watch Scream 5. Scream 6, though, I absolutely refuse to watch it. I watched the trailer for it, and I said, fuck this, I'm not watching it. I already know who's the killer. Spoiler alert, he's in the fucking trailer as the character that he normally plays. So you should automatically know who he is when you see Ghostface with a fucking gun in New York City, by the way, because that's smart. To have Scream take place in fucking New York because we really needed another Jason Takes Manhattan, which we're gonna get into next. Um, but yeah, Scream in general though. Take into account the first film and the fourth film, in my opinion. The second and third films that are okay. They're like C tier sequels. They're like, you know, seven, 6.5, sevens out of 10. Whereas Scream 1 is almost a 10 out of 10, and Scream 4 is like a 9 ish out of 10. I'm going to throw Scream into the S tier. I think that you cannot touch like that first film. I think that like it's impossible to say, hey, it deserves to be any lower than that. Um, so yeah, that's my opinion on Scream. I just went in. Also, the TV show sucks, and that's completely separate. We're not even talking about that shit.
I've seen most. I've seen like the first. No, actually, I've seen the first 2 seasons of the television show. It is awful.
I watched the third season because it's the only season that actually has Ghostface in it, and it was horrible. It wasn't terrible. It was horrible. If
I
that makes any sense.
I like how they had Bella Thorne for like 5 fucking seconds before she got murdered. Oh, spoiler alert for a fucking show that came out how many years ago at this point?
It's been like 6 years, 7 years, or some shit. I don't
Yeah,
even know, to be honest.
like the only good thing was like
2016, 2015. Oh
yeah, it
wow,
was
that was a
something
long time
that
ago.
was yeah, it was a while ago. Like the only good
That's
thing
deep.
about it was like seeing Bella Thorne. I think she was like in a bikini. I was like, it's okay.
So the same reason as to why Scream 5 and Scream 6 are good because Jenna Ortega,
All right,
right?
and you know what? I can't with you. Look, okay, you know what? Let's meet halfway. Let's put an A.
So do you want? Okay, I can agree with you that it's a very high A. Fine, I'll take it out of the S tier for me.
Let's just halfway. Personally, words would throw this shit in S. I throw it in the
It's
B.
high A, low S, but there is no low S. It's just S, but still.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, it could, like I said earlier, I throw it in B because personally, like given like the time frame in which I watched it, I've seen other horror, other slasher films at the time. It kind of muddled and kind of didn't have the same impact for me anyway that it had for words. So we'll meet halfway. A. Now,
Fine. It was the first. By the way, I will say the first Scream was the first slasher film I've ever watched. So, outside of, fucking Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but we're not gonna count that, obviously.
so we go from one slasher to another, and probably one of the much like Ghostface, another legendary slasher, Friday the 13th. You went first, or was it who went
It was
first?
you who went first.
You go first.
I went on for so long, you forgot.
I know.
Friday the 13th is a tough one for me. For a long time, Friday the 13th was actually higher for me over Scream, believe it or not. Now, I'll say this, slasher films are my favorite genre of horror, so again, a little impartial bias here. The first Friday the 13th is a really good like copycat of Halloween because that's literally what it was based off of, if you don't know. Um the second film is really good. Uh and then there's 3D. There's Friday the 13th 3 3D. If you didn't know, the third film is in 3D, and there's a bunch of stupid shit that they do to give you the 3D effect because I'm watching at home on a 3D television. Did they just not expect that home releases were ever going to happen or that TV was going to have the films? I don't know, but Friday the 13th is one of those really weird franchises where it has a great start and there's like an okay middle and then it just completely falls apart. And there's a bunch of these movies in Friday the 13th that I absolutely fucking hate in that franchise. The first of them, I won't say Friday the 13th 3 is not the worst thing in the world. It's just dumb with the stupid 3D shit. Friday the 13th 4 is actually probably the best one, believe it or not. Which is crazy as fuck to think, but it was the perfect ending. It was the perfect way to literally end the franchise. But then they decided to make a fifth film for no reason. Um, that has, and this is what ruined the Friday the 13th trilogy for me. First of all, in Friday the 13th Part 5, it's not even fucking Jason. It's a guy who pretends to be Jason. And you want to know why he went on a killing spree? Because the son that he left that was fucking mentally retarded and was eating a chocolate bar in a camp and got sliced, pretty much got killed by a fucking asshole psycho guy who was cutting wood from a tree. Uh yeah, he just found out that he went insane because of his son dying. What does this have to do with anything? That ruined it. And then Jason Lives came out, and it's like one of those ones where it's like, holy shit, it's actually an interesting idea where it's like out of nowhere fucking you know, it turns Jason into an actual like fucking superhuman mythical character, but it also has meta humor in ways that you haven't seen up until pretty much Scream, which is funny as hell to say. And then everything after that is pretty much it just gets worse and worse. Jason Takes Manhattan is fucking stupid as shit, and we all know it is.
Remember that movie?
Like the guy jumps on a fucking boat in Camp Crystal Lake, and somehow the boat goes all the way to New York City.
Or how
It
about
doesn't even make any sense.
Jason X?
We'll get there because I didn't get to talk about the shittiest film in the entire franchise,
Is it the one that
which
I?
is Jason Goes to Fucking Hell.
Yep.
The worst fucking thing you've ever seen. It was supposed to be the actual end, the second ending to it. And he got pulled into hell by another guy who happened to also be dead at that point, aka Freddy Krueger. And it is what led to Freddy versus Jason. But Jason Goes to Hell is a movie where Jason is in the fucking movie for like 5 minutes and he looks like shit because his spirit is just passing through a bunch of people. It's the dumbest thing you've ever seen, okay? Jason Goes to Hell is one of the worst fucking movies I've ever watched. We'll just say that. It made its money back 5 times the money, pretty much. But then Jason X came out in 2001.
I love that movie.
And
I love that movie.
I'm going to say this Jason X is fucking stupid. It's dumb. Like, yeah, we're going to fucking cryogenically freeze a fucking maniac who can live forever and just have him wake up in the future. It's so fucking dumb. I'm sorry. Like it's so stupid, but Jason X is actually a really fun movie.
Yeah.
Funnily enough. Like it's so funny that I say that. And it ends up being one of the better fucking Friday the 13th movies, which is dumb.
If I remember.
And then you get Oh, you can go.
No, all I was gonna say is, look, it gets an extra point for me because if I remember correctly, it showed some titties or had some girls with some titties on. If I remember the
My
scene,
favorite part of
this
that movie is when they try to trick him in
Yeah, in
the thing with
the
with the
holograms.
girls in the camps, and he literally just keeps hitting the fucking chick against a fucking tree in the sleeping bag,
That shit was
and can't
funny.
figure out that it's not fucking real.
Look, man, at least we know he can. Look, man, he can go the distance if he needs to.
And then we'll get to the last film, and this is actually the last Friday the 13th film, technically, and the last Nightmare on Elm Street film as well. Technically, we're not counting. I'm not talking about the
The reboots.
the reboots. But Freddy vs. Jason, which happens to actually be my favorite film for both of those franchises. People hate it, and I get it because it kind of like try to go super hardcore on like the fucking meta stuff that Scream had started, and it tried to have like the like that. I don't even know what the word is, but you know how you had like the heartthrob characters and shit like that became famous after Scream with like I Know What You Did Last Summer, and then Halloween H2O, which we're gonna talk about in a
Oh
second
yeah.
as well. Did the same thing. They did it with Freddy vs. Jason, but Freddy vs. Jason is a really fun, cool idea. It's a great crossover. It's my favorite Friday the 13th film. Overall, we're making a tier list, and I should probably focus on that.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th. It's an A, right? Like it has to be an A. It has to be like an S or an A. I don't really know where else you can put it at. I'm gonna put it in A because there's some really great films in the franchise, even with the really shitty, stupid ones. Halloween is the same thing, but we'll get into that when we get to that. It's an A in my opinion.
So, what was I gonna say? Oh, I like Friday the 13th. I like the movies. Um, as I said earlier, Jason X.
Hey, you want a beer?
Or do you want to smoke some pot?
Or we can have premarital sex.
Good. It's a good movie in my book. It was one that I saw. I think I saw that was probably the one I saw the most growing up. Um, I have seen the reboot. It's not very good, but as Word said, we're not really talking about that.
I forgot to mention that one, but
It's bad. Let's just leave it at that.
it's not good, and I'm not looking forward to the next reboot either, to be honest with you.
But again, Words kind of summed it up best. It's one of those franchises where it has some really highs and some really bad lows. It's just really all over the fucking place. Um, I've seen the first one, Jason X. I've seen Jason Goes to Hell. That was, I think, the first one I think I've legitimately ever saw of him. And it was probably the worst possible introduction because I went, what is this movie? Holy shit. But no, for me, I hold that, like I said, I also will say this is A. But for me, within the context of the A tiered Words May Kill Me for this, I will have it above Scream, personally.
I'm okay with that though. I don't agree with it, but I can understand if someone puts Friday the 13th over Scream.
Like I said, it has
So,
some really bad lows. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there aren't some, like a good chunk of the franchise is horrifically bad. But there are some movies in here that I love and I frankly remember vividly growing up. So for me, Friday the 13th is A and it's above Scream. Now,
I also want to add this actually 1 second.
mm-hmm.
We talked about the like too many sequels for Saw and Nightmare on Elm Street. For Friday the 13th, it's not as big of a deal because it's funny how the sequels, even though there's some really bad ones, there were some really great ones that gave like the first two a run for their money. So it's different than like Nightmare on Elm Street and Saw, where none of them really touched the originals.
Now, we've talked about Jason, we've talked about Freddy, we've talked about Ghostface. Now there's another, and Chucky as well, and Jigsaw. Now let's talk about, and Leatherface, I guess, because that's technically the name of the guy in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now let's talk about, again, one of the other other iconic killers of the horror movie genre. Good old Michael Myers. And I gotta say this much: it is one of those franchises. To an extent, it's kind of similar to the wonkiness of like Friday the 13th, where the first movie I think is still remains the best, but there are some okay sequels throughout, post that I'm like okay with. Now, the most recent one I thought was decent. Like, it was just a straight up, he was just murdering people left and right. That I saw. I never, what was the last one? I think it was Halloween Kills was the last one?
Halloween Kills was the last one. A lot of people didn't like that film, but
Yeah, but he was killing motherfuckers in that one, alright. He was murdering them. So, again, I enjoy it for what it's worth. And again, I legitimately speaking, I think out of the bunch, I think Michael Myers was the first of like the slasher, the like iconic slasher killers, I guess is the best way to describe them. I can't really think of something better. That
all the
I
slasher films that came after Halloween are because of Halloween. So
Yeah.
Friday the 13th, that's because John Carpenter decided to make Halloween. Same probably for Nightmare on Elm Street, if we're being fair.
But yeah, so Halloween was the first one that I legitimately can recall seeing. So Halloween, I enjoy it. It has some bad sequels here and there, but again, I think there's enough throughout to kind of go. It's not terribly stale. It did get weird at moments. It really did. But I think as a whole, I think it's pretty good. And I honestly, for me, if you had to ask me my ranking, I give it the lone S tier for me. Words? Go on your soliloquy now, like Stephen
So
A. Smith.
so Halloween. I'm one of the rare fucking people that you're gonna meet that not only enjoyed the most recent trilogy, but also enjoys the large majority of these films. Halloween 1 is a classic. I don't even have to go into that. I know John Carpenter hates Halloween 2 and they basically retconned all the sequels for a second time um with the most recent trilogy, but Halloween 2 is still one of my favorite fucking like slasher films ever. Like when I watch the first two Halloweens, I'm scared as shit in real life of fucking Michael Myers. Then you get Halloween 3, and a lot of people hate Halloween 3, but guess what? It's actually my favorite fucking Halloween movie. Some people are gonna call me crazy for that, but it's such like a the exploration of like that idea of what Halloween 3 is like as a cult film and as like something that goes into the anthology of the scared parts of what Halloween is. Like that's what Halloween is supposed to be, by the way, where we dress up as people that are killers and shit and don't have a problem with that. And then in Halloween 2, even though it's only shown for like 2 seconds, you see a kid with the fucking razor blade that he got from the candy, which is all about, the people, the horrible shit that people will literally do that is related to Halloween. And then Halloween 3, we dress up in masks, we wear masks, and it's a huge part of the culture of what Halloween is. But they do something horrible with those masks and kill a bunch of fucking kids, and don't have a problem with that. And then they decided that Michael Myers needed to come back to life for some reason, and they made Halloween 4, which is not terrible, but is pretty much a remake of the first fucking Halloween, if we're being honest. But it had a great ending, which they decided to ruin with Halloween 5 and Halloween 6. And Halloween 6 specifically is the worst fucking movie that's ever been made in the history of Hollywood. I don't care what anyone says, it's legitimately the worst film ever made, in my opinion. I refuse to watch Halloween 6. Like, I refuse to watch that shit. But then you get, and Halloween 5 is just whatever. It's fucking shit. It's too, it makes that Michael Myers is, fucking controlled by a cult and all this shit. It's stupid, right? But then they made H2O, which I mentioned had the heart-throbby horror thing, was, diving into that. But there was a good meta there. It became kind of a meta horror film. And it was a decent fucking film. It was a great ending overall. Again, it was another great ending overall to what could have been an alright franchise, right? But then they decided to make Halloween Resurrection, which most people will say is the worst. I disagree with that, but it's the second worst. But, that's just a stupid fucking movie that should have never been made. And they tried to set up another sequel after that film also, which is fucking dumb. But anyway, then they took like a huge break from that main line and they decided to make Rob Zombie's Halloween films. And the first Rob Zombie film is actually really good. The second one is garbage. It's on the same level as Halloween 6 and Halloween Resurrection. But Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 is actually pretty good. And I like the whole backstory thing going into Michael's childhood and shit like that. And then we get the most recent trilogy, which we kind of mentioned a little bit when I talked about Exorcist, how David Gordon Green was in charge and Blumhouse. And I will say this. Halloween 2018 is probably the fourth best Halloween film ever made. Halloween Kills, my bad. Halloween Ends was the last movie that came out. Halloween Kills is probably the worst of that trilogy, but it's still not as bad as like Halloween 5 and 6 and Resurrection and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. There's a lot of good wipeouts, a lot of fucking good kills, and that's really it. If you want to watch a movie to see a bunch of kills, that's what Halloween Kills is literally all about. And then Halloween Ends, which a lot of people hate. They think that's the worst one, actually. I actually love Halloween Ends. Now, I will say that it's not a great Halloween film because it doesn't really fit the series. But I think that if they decided to take Halloween Ends and turn it into an actual normal slasher series, a separate thing, it would have been a very, very good slasher series. And I'm going to agree with you. Halloween is going to be the one film that goes into the S tier, the one franchise. I was going to have Scream and Halloween. I'll accept the fact, though, that Scream really only has two good films, where Halloween has a large majority of its films are good enough that you can say it's the best horror franchise ever. Like I said, there's 5, 6, Resurrection, and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 that are legitimately bad. How many is that? 4 or some shit like that?
Yeah.
4 out of however many there is not bad. So compare it to the other ones.
Yeah.
So Halloween is gonna go in the S tier for me as well.
Here's the thing that we can agree on, because again, we obviously have our little disagreements when it comes to like where to place them, but this is like the only one where we go, yeah, it goes up there. So
It's just too iconic to leave it at S tier.
Yeah. Now we move on to one that I'm not gonna lie, outside of the one that we saw last,
Oh God,
outside of
I forgot about that one.
outside of the one film that me and Words here saw ourselves like last October when we went to a convention when we were in our Airbnb. So I'm only familiar when it comes to Hellraiser. I'm only familiar with the new one that came out last year. That is the extent of my knowledge of the franchise. I've seen a couple scenes of like some of the other ones, but I don't know enough to comment on them like that. From the one that came out in 2022, I liked it. I'm not going to say it was like fantastic or anything, but I liked it for what it was. It was an interesting movie. Like I said, it's not scary in the traditional sense because again, there's the whole, there's kind of a message of like, beating back your addictions and then how easy it is to fall into that kind of path and how hard it is to pull out of it, right? With like the main character and the chick, and she was like trying to beat, I think she was an alcoholic if I remember correctly, was trying to beat that, but struggled with it, and obviously the puzzle. It was a neat movie, right? And obviously you have Hellraiser, who was, look, man, if I saw somebody like Hellraiser in the fucking park, I would run for the fucking hills. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, get the fuck away from me. But I will say it is B. I like the movie. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna say Hellraiser is
Wow.
in the B. Personally,
Wow. That's based off of one film that you've seen.
one movie that I like. I like the 2022 one. Not gonna lie.
You have not seen the other ones.
I'm assuming they're terrible.
The first two Hellraisers were legitimately okay. The first one is really good in my opinion. I like the first Hellraiser, and then there's Hellraiser 2. I forget what the actual name of it is. I think it's like Hellbound or some shit like that. I don't even know what the fuck it is. I think I might be wrong, but I know the second one is all right. The first and the second one are right. And now we're 2022. Everything else after that, I don't even think I have to like explain it. They're all fucking trash. Like to the point that some of them were like straight to DVD, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, the first film though is one of the greatest horror films ever made, in my opinion. Um, and the score is amazing because Christopher Young. If you don't know Christopher Young, he also did the Spider-Man 3 uh,
Oh, he did the.
soundtrack and
Oh.
stuff. Yeah, he did some stuff with this dude. What's his face? Who I'm talking about? Sam Raimi. He did a few things with him. But anyway, Hellraiser in general though is a horrible like they just made too many and they made too many that were bad. Okay, it's not like Saw where there's 3 that are good. Where three was enough, but there's some that are okay after that. And where Nightmare on Elm Street, like there's enough that's good. Hellraiser to me is a D because the first film is pretty good, the second one's okay, and then the 2022 Hellraiser was all right as well. I'm giving it a D tier. He hasn't watched the other films, so some people might disagree with him, honestly, but
Which
I think
is
most people might agree with my D rating here.
hmm. Well, we'll meet halfway, much like with Scream. I'll put it down to high C. Let's leave it at that.
I'm still leaving it in D tier on my screen.
Now we
You can leave it
go.
wherever you want.
Yeah, no. Like I said, for me, I'm gonna. You know what? If we're gonna do that, I will leave it then at B. Because again, I really like the one that we saw last year. So feel free to
I was
disagree.
fine. Yeah, I mean, I was fine though, compromising with Scream, but this one, no. I'm sorry.
Now, here is a non-tradi. I mean, is it technically horror? I mean, sure, but not in the traditional sense. Jaws. Now, unlike many of them, this iconic movie is about a shark. which was hilariously enough inspired by the Jersey attacks in like the early 1900s, if I remember correctly, or may have been the inspiration for it, I should say.
It was the inspiration for the Jaws book that inspired Jaws the movie.
Yeah. So, for me, I've seen the original once, kind of a hazy memory of it, but I liked it because again, it took it pretty much helped create the I guess it almost kickstarted the whole like all the movies that came afterwards that were literally about like sharks. You know, all the movies about shark attacks within like, you know, even you have the most recent movies being the Meg 1 and 2, right? Being the most recent incarnations of like shark attack movies. For me, I will say it is A. I'm gonna say that much.
Have you watched any of the sequels?
I've seen. How many are there again? Because you gotta.
There's fucking 3 of them. Believe it or not.
Wow, that's kind of shocking.
You didn't know that. I
Yeah.
think there's only 3, right? There might be fucking 4, actually. I don't remember. I think
Again,
it's 3 though. But
much like Hellraiser, seen the first one. So, off the first one, I'm going to preface this, much like with Hellraiser, I'm prefacing this off one film because I didn't make this tier list. This was words, he made it. So, I've only seen the first one. Based off the first one, I give it an A. For me. You can trash me in the comments if you like. I don't know.
I won't. So I'll jump in here. I don't completely disagree with that because Jaws, the first Jaws film, literally changed the fucking world. It literally was the first blockbuster film like ever made. It changed the way filmmaking basically was done from like the mid to late 70s to now, right? The first Jaws film, I mean, it's one of the greatest movies ever. I mean, if you don't think so, maybe you're a little stupid. I don't know. But yeah, the first Jaws film automatically is one of the greatest movies of all time. Jaws 2, it isn't a terrible sequel, but it's kind of an unnecessary sequel. Um but most of the people at least in the film, you know, they reprised their roles even though they didn't really want to do it. And it's all right. It's like, you know, whatever, it's fine. And then finally, there's Jaws 3D. Another
Oof.
fucking 3D movie
Oof.
that had nothing to do with the first 2 fucking movies, by the way. And when it came out on like TV and home video, they just decided, oh yeah, we're just gonna name it Jaws 3 and not because the name was literally Jaws 3D. Okay. And it was so bad, by the way, that they literally made fun of it in Back to the Future Part 2. When Marty goes to the future.
Oof.
But then there's the final film, the 4th film, the worst thing most of us have probably ever seen.
My God,
Jaws the Revenge,
thank God I avoided that then.
which is about Sheriff Bodie's Sheriff Brody, my bad, I should say.
Brody the Builder.
It's
Yeah.
whatever his name, Brody, you know what I'm saying. Everyone knows who I'm saying, right? It's literally about his wife and how a shark is coming to kill her as revenge.
It's just so that's so stupid by the premise alone. Thank God I never saw it.
And she wants to have revenge also on the great white sharks because not only did the great white shark possibly kill Brody, but also killed her younger son.
You mad, bro? It's just a prank.
But anyway, Chief Brody. That's what I meant to say. So, what does Jaws receive when it has two horrible sequels, but one of the greatest films of all time in its thing, and then an okay sequel that was unnecessary, and then two sequels that should have just never been made? It's still gonna go an A because we let Scream get A. So I'm giving it an A. Did you give it an A? I don't even remember.
I gave it an A because, again, as
You
I
did
said,
give it an A.
I preface this by saying I've only seen the first one, haven't seen the sequels. Much like Hellraiser, I'm prefacing this off of one movie. So, take my opinion on those two movies with a grain of salt, right?
I think the first film carries it enough to be an A because that first film was an S, but it just got dragged down anyway by the three sequels. So
Yeah. And, unlike Jaws, we will be talking about Candyman. And, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just going to be blunt with you. That shit's trash. Saw it. I went, nope. We even saw the reboot. Yeah, we should have just watched something else. I think we had an option for something else that day. We should have just watched it. Instead of Candyman, bro. This, I'm just
I
putting.
don't think it was up to us. It was somebody else who made the mind up to watch that.
Look, I'm gonna say as much. Candyman is trash. End of story. I I ain't gonna say nothing about the cultural and all that other crap underneath it.
I'll say this.
I don't care.
You don't care. I mean, that's fine.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the audience.
Well, whatever. Uh, the first one is okay, but then they decided to make sequels of it, and if I'm not mistaken, they wanted to make Leprechaun versus Candyman. And we didn't put Leprechaun on this list because we would have just done the exact same thing that we're doing for Candyman.
Good God.
I forgot, and I almost forgot that Leprechaun existed, but sadly I had to make this tier list. But yeah, there's one okay movie. The first one is alright, and then everything else is fucking trash. I blame Jordan Peele also, by the way, who is not a good filmmaker, for the last film being complete shit. It's an F. Yeah, it's an F. I don't know what else to say. It's terrible.
All right, next on the list, Insidious. Um, I like I like the Insidious movies for the most part. Um, oh wait, were you supposed to go first? I think you're supposed to go first. Words.
Hey, don't even matter. Did you watch the most recent Insidious?
That one, no, I've seen the other ones, but not the most recent one.
You've seen 3.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen The Last Key.
Was the last key the one where she goes to the house, the old house she used to live in, I think?
To be honest, I don't even remember.
Well, from what I can remember, I've seen most of it up until the most recent one. I think it's a good horror movie franchise in general. Um, does it get kind of samey? It does at times. Because again, the first one, like the most iconic thing that came out of this movie, of this franchise in general, was the demon with the red face, like hiding behind Ed Warren, because I don't remember the actor's name.
Exactly. I don't remember his name either. Look,
He was also in Moonfall. If you remember that?
Patrick Wilson.
There you go. Right, the demon that's standing behind him when the camera panned to his mom, and she obviously like, oh god, like jumped back because like she saw the demon. I think it's decent. I will probably give it a B. It's better than the Hellraiser. I don't, but it's not better than Nightmare on Elm Street for me. So
I'm gonna be honest. I only saw the first two Insidious films. Um, and I think I watched a little bit of Chapter 3, right? But I'm gonna say this. Just like I think it's too much like The Conjuring in the way that it's like there's one really good movie and then everything else, one like good movie out of like the main line and shit like that, and then it turns into like whatever, like nobody cares anymore in my opinion. I'm putting Insidious and see. I'm not gonna go super in depth because that's just how I feel. I already talked about it with The Conjuring basically,
all right, so that sums it
and
up.
it's made by the exact same people also. So let's
Oh yeah, just
also say that
Juan. I forget his name.
James Wan.
There you go. That's what I was thinking of. So, Children of the Corn.
Oh God. You want me to go here?
I'm gonna be real with you. My memory is very blurry. I've seen a couple of them, but I've had this is the kind of movie. I'll be brutally honest, folks. This is the kind of movie I have on one monitor, and while I'm working on something else, and I occasionally look to see what the fuck's going on. That is the extent of what I give a shit about the Children of the Corn franchise as a whole. If it was up to me, you know what? I'll just be honest. I put it in D tier personally.
That's a horrible idea.
Really now.
Yes. I'm just jumping in. Fuck it. Children of the Corn is an F. I may have put it in D, but I don't like Stephen King anymore because he's an asshole. And he wrote about child gangbangs in his story. So automatically, we could have put it here and I would have put it in F as well. So it doesn't matter. Because I fucking hate Stephen King and I hate every single film that's ever been made by his books. For the most part. The first Children of the Corn was good. I'll say that. The first original It is okay. It's just too fucking long and boring. The recent It films are fucking stupid also. I don't even know what else. Pet Cemetery, every single version of it is kind of ass. I'm not going to lie to you. Children of the Corn, fucking garbage. It's absolute garbage. The first film is fine, but I'm going to tell you how I was able to buy every single Children of the Corn sequel. Most of you who are young might not even know what Kmart is. If you never lived in America, you might not know what Kmart is. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Kmart was a store, was the Walmart of our day, okay? It was the Walmart before Walmart and Target became the big thing. And they used to have the bargain bin DVDs, and I don't know, I'm not sure if Walmart still has that shit, but Kmart had the bargain bin DVDs, horror films, and I bought a bunch of them because I became a huge fan of slasher films and horror films in like the early 2010s when I was probably too young and probably should have not watched any of these fucking movies. And I watched every single Children of the Corn sequel that was made. And I regret that decision to this day.
I was about to ask you, don't you regret that decision now? In hindsight?
It's what I should have expected when I bought the film, when I bought a DVD set from the bargain bin in Kmart. But to be fair, I also bought Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D or whatever the fuck it was. I also bought that one in the bargain bin at Kmart, funnily enough. And I bought some of the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels also in that bargain bin, as well as the Hellraiser sequels that I didn't get to watch that were not on streaming services because they used to be on streaming services actually. So yeah, Children of the Corn is fucking trash. It belongs in the garbage. If they're trying to remake it, please tell them to stop. Don't let Stephen King have any more films. I'm sorry. He's a fucking pedophile weirdo. He doesn't deserve any more films to be made based off of his weird stories. Fuck you, Stephen King. Fuck Children of the Corn. Fuck it. Fuck Pet Cemetery. It all deserves the fucking trash bin. It deserves to be destroyed in a fucking dumpster fire. It deserves to be killed off the same way Michael Myers was killed off in Halloween Ends. Put through a fucking grinder in the dumpster. That's all I'm gonna say. Children of the Corn is garbage. It's in the F tier.
You got anything more to say?
That's
well,
it.
well, that was a very aggressive and very opinionated. Well, then again, these are all opinions, but damn, Words didn't hold nothing back when he said he fucking hated these movies. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up on our final contestant in this tier list because, my God, I'm sure some of you may be looking at this fucking timeline and going, holy fuck, you two idiots have been talking for this long? Yes, we are. So, Sinister. I'm gonna be upfront and honest. It is the king of mediocrity. It is probably the best mediocre horror film that I like. It's my guilty pleasure. It's kind of the movie that I like watching, from time to time. It like I said, it's the movie that had it had a very impactful first scene, which was the family, obviously with the bags over their head, rope around their neck, and like connected to a tree. Like they were literally about to be hung, like right before you. It was like, holy shit, what is this movie? And then it turned into some wild shit, man. Shout out to Josh. Shout out to Josh. For those of you who know who Josh Ray Person is. But yeah, I like Sinister overall. It's not that good and it's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it's not that good. It's the king of mediocrity when it comes to horror movies. Words?
I'll keep it brief. I'm not the biggest fan of either one of the Sinister films, but the first film was pretty fucking scary. I will say that, and it has that on it. But I'm not the biggest fan in general, to be honest. And the main reason for that is because, again, I hate to keep saying this, but it just keeps reminding me of the era of the original Conjuring film, of both of the Insidious films. Everything from that era for me is kind of rough, if I'm being honest. They're not my favorite favorite films to watch. If you couldn't tell, I prefer the old school classic slashers the most. But I think the first film is good enough. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Uh, like they're decent enough. Um, I put it ahead of Jeepers Creepers. I'm sorry. Um,
Hey man, that's
but yeah,
okay.
it's a C tier franchise. I doubt it's ever gonna come back. But
Mm,
yeah, well, I can't say I shouldn't say that because now Bloomhouse is gonna make another sequel to it.
yeah, no, for me, I forget the director's name because I don't believe he was the director of the sequel. That was the funny part. I believe he was just a producer. I forget the guy's name because he was the guy who was supposed to originally direct Multiverse of Madness, but then he kind of got he hit something happened to him. He then fucked off because like whatever. No, actually I remember his original pitch was too scary. Feige said fuck off, we don't want this, and then that's when Sam Raimi came in. But that's the thing.
I heard it was more than that. To be
I
fair,
know. Yeah, I know. There was probably more to it.
and based off of his his like films, The Exorcism of Emily Rose we already talked about. The Exorcist thing. It's just like Amityville, where you kind of can't copyright that name, so a bunch of people just fucking make Exorcist type of movies. He also added to the horrible Hellraiser film franchise. And then he also made The Black Phone, which came out 2 years ago. I don't think I didn't get to watch that. I'm not sure if you did either,
No.
but yeah. I don't know. I don't really know. He just has a bunch of shit in his history of filmmaking. I'm not calling him a bad filmmaker. I'm just saying he has a history of shit. But yeah,
Well, we have put together. I have put together my tier list.
my tier list is also available on my screen.
Yeah, I'll probably post yours like in a community post or whatever. For those who may be curious. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna call it here. This video is gonna be stupidly long for no unfucking reason. Did I just say unfucking?
Yes.
Whatever. This is my tier list. Feel free to disagree. Feel free to agree with me. Feel free to say whatever the fuck you want to say in the comments below. And also check out Words. My buddy here, check out his YouTube channel. He streams a lot more than I do. You just you know, you go watch his backlog of Spider-Man content in terms of playing PS4 Spider-Man and PS5 Spider-Man. So check him out. That would, you know, be nice of you. It's Halloween. You know, give something a chance.
Give me a treat.
Oh, don't be like the little boy from Trick or Treat.
I'll be streaming on Halloween as well, so
yeah,
there's another time to look forward to that. You should also check out our like group channel thing, because
Yeah.
we're probably gonna post something in there
relative
as well soon.
Yeah. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys relatively soon. So see ya.
Peace out. God, here we go. Wait. The dog just ruined the session. Hey, shut the fuck up. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. This was not planned at all. Shut up.